I was tagged in this post several times, and we're just going to jump right into it because this just makes sense and is in alignment with everything else we talk about on my page. This woman says, "Every man my age I know wants babies. Every woman my age I know doesn't." That absolutely tracks with the things that we have been talking about. It tracks with that MSNBC poll where men want to have babies and get married more than the women do. But let's look at her post. She says, "I'm not trying to generalize here. This is just based on my friend group and my experience as an urban 26-year-old woman. My best friend was just dumped by her boyfriend of 5 years because she didn't want kids, something they had extensively discussed. And he woke up on his 30th birthday and decided suddenly he needed a legacy. Men in their late 20s and early 30s are obsessed with having kids, and the women my age, my girlfriends, are all super ambivalent, if not hostile to the idea. Like, it seems like wanting kids among women is less and less common with the late 20s to early 30s demographic, while it's all men can think of. It's so weird because growing up, all the media, all the movies and TV shows taught me that women are baby crazy. The biological clock is ticking. And yet in real life, it's the men who are relentless about being fathers. It's really weird, and it puts every pop culture depiction of women I've seen into question. The thing is, these men are not wanting to be fathers. They're wanting to make these babies. Yes, they could make the babies, but they have the expectation that the woman is going to be the person that is the caretaker. And the women are saying, get someone else to do it. It's not working out because these dudes are not being the parent. They're not parenting their children. And the women are seeing what's going on. It is very, women right now are very loud about the lack of participation of the peen havers, the secondary adult. This woman says, "I am in a one-parent household where there's 2 adults." So it's like the ladies are speaking, and the ladies, the child-free women, are saying, "Nope, I want no parts of that." This is a great story from this woman named Ness Lady. She says, "Fun story. I was a fully single mother when I met my now ex-husband. My partner passed when our child was a baby. We were both in graduate school, and I made it known that I didn't want more kids. He claimed he didn't want kids of his own. Flash forward to we barely been married a year, and he starts talking about wanting a baby. Meanwhile, my child was a teenager, and I had finally gotten the job. After discussing, I finally said that I would do it, but not as the primary parent. I would donate my body, carry a baby, and breastfeed or pump for a year, but I wasn't going to be the primary caregiver. I didn't go to college and then graduate school as a single mother so I could be some dude's nanny. I was going to focus on my career, and he could be a daddy. That meant he handled everything. Getting up in the middle of the night, dropping off and picking up from daycare, school, paperwork, doctor's appointments, vaccines, PTA, parent-teacher conferences, after-school and summer programs, lunches, sick at school, that's you, boo. Want to go to a business trip to advance your career? I don't know. Seems like a lot of work for me. And if we decide to get divorced, that's your child. I'll pay child support, but no shared custody because I've done this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a light at the end of my tunnel. And what you're not about to do is make it a train." The way it stopped the whole conversation, he took some time to think about it and decided he didn't want kids of his own. Simple. We never even talked about it again. They don't want children. They want to watch you give up everything to care for their children. This was such an A+ story. It had to be read first. No Consideration says, "I feel like this should be written up in the New York Times or the Atlantic. I completely agree. That was beautiful." Daydreaming Damon says, "Time has shifted the perspective. Men, I want kids because I want the life my dad had. Women, I don't want kids because I don't want the life my mother had." Automatic Ad says, "Also with the economy, who can afford to give our kids the same childhood as us?" Love for Two says, "Also the state of this world." Stars in X says women having more access to information about pregnancy and childbirth plays an important factor too. Too much to think about. Obstetric violence just being one of them. But there are biological things we were denied to know because if it's natural, then it's safe. But also there's pregnancy violence as well. There's all kind of things going on. And it's not just the information about pregnancy and childbirth, it's what happens after childbirth that women have access to as well. Adherent of the repeated said, I know several women who had absolutely horrific birth experiences, like PTSD causing trauma. You're right. The internet has allowed more women to talk peer to peer without censoring from publication editors and are more aware of how pregnancies can go very, very wrong. Interesting Force says, have you called your grandparents and asked them what their life experience was like? I hear this question a lot and think it lacks perspective. Bavar says, I have a trick and you can copy it. By growing up dirt poor and striking it to reach the middle class, my kids have way better childhood than I had. Okay. Now this person says, it's a lot easier to want something that ain't getting ripped out of your body and making you deal with it forever before and after. That's absolutely true. These dudes don't have to go through all of the things that women go through to have these babies. And then typically the women are the ones that are doing all the caretaking, well, most of the caretaking, having the financial aspects, and the dudes opt in or opt out of parenthood. They're showing us that that's what they can do. And women are not going for that. Vote Cat for President says 200%. My precocious butt saw as a little kid that my dad got to do everything he wanted and my mom took care of us. 4 or 5, I decided not to have kids. Now, it turns out my dad is hella autistic and those were his hyperfixations, but my mom never had her own issues that we all went along for, like with my dad. And then Daydreaming Demond says, I had a similar realization around the same age. And then Antique Sweatshirt says this right here. Miss Menace 101 says this in a nutshell. So it's the girls. Girls were watching what was going on. The girls were saying, Dad gets to do whatever. Mom is stuck here. People have eyes. They could see. This colored a lot of the adults' experiences of right now. They don't want to mirror that. They don't want the girls of back then don't want to be the mothers. F. George Girl says, I'm 60 years old with 3 kids in their early 20s. I think one huge reason this is happening is because men can have kids with virtually no impact on their careers and goals in life. Women, on the other hand, often have to take back burner careers when they have kids. I don't even mean the total stay-at-home mom, but rather they pursue easier careers that they don't push for promotion, do freelance or contract work, curtail travel, do fewer networking events like happy hours, golf games, etc. Most of the moms I know have sacrificed their careers in some way. Sure, not all of them, but many. But I know very, very few men who have had to do the same thing. EJ Dax says, I have seen studies that show men actually do better in careers. If a man has a family, their employer sees them as stable, but a woman is a liability because she will miss more work or not be as focused, whether this is true or not. That is absolutely the reason why there is a motherhood penalty and a fatherhood bonus. Angiosperm says, at one of my jobs, they were hiring a C-level person, and part of the interview was to give a presentation. A lot of their kids put their kids in their presentation. Imagine if a woman did that. Vote Cat for President said, and those dads get praised for doing that too. Milo says, my husband had the audacity to increase his income by the same amount that I previously earned in the year following our first child being born, because there is a fatherhood bonus. New Writer says, mine pulled back every time I got a nice increase and continued to do as little as possible to parent. My life post-divorce is far better than what I had in my previous experience. Stella Luna says, mine got a raise while on paternity leave. I'm currently on unpaid leave, but I'm also my baby's favorite person, which in my opinion is priceless. So this is what the ladies are talking about. Y'all go ahead and chime in. We got to talk about this one too. This woman says, my husband wants this baby. I don't. Help. I grabbed this just as soon as it dropped. She says, my husband and I have been together for 8 years, married for 1. I'm currently 4 weeks and 2 days pregnant, so very early. We recently wanted to try having kids and it worked immediately. We were both shocked as honestly, I thought we'd have to try for a bit longer. My husband's happy. I'm not. I always wanted to be a mom until I saw that pregnancy test positive, and for some reason I changed my mind. It's been 1 week since I found out. Ever since that week, I've been finding gaps in my life. First of all I ever see online is negative so I'm sick of it and I'm considering deleting all social media. I'm terrified my life is over. I'm terrified my marriage will suffer. I'm terrified of postpartum depression. I'm terrified that my baby will be colicky. I'm terrified I won't ever sleep or feel like myself. I've mentioned a few times to my husband that maybe we should just wait a little longer. We currently live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and my husband won't really have more than a week off of work. I keep getting hit with these waves of wanting a termination. I have cried almost every single day, which confuses me considering I really wanted this. But now that it feels so real, I just don't know. My husband is generally a good man, but he doesn't handle stress well. He withdraws a lot from me when he's stressed. Today, for example, he is self-conscious about his skin. He had a breakout on his face and literally would barely talk to me the entire day. That's when it hit me. I need to terminate this pregnancy ASAP. We are not ready. He is not ready. And I do not want to raise a baby in a household with 2 immature people. I'm just being honest. I think my life would be hell, even though 2 weeks ago, all I could imagine was my life being heavenly with a child. We're 26 and 28. Although I felt like I'd feel ready by this time, I was greatly mistaken. I don't want this anymore. I don't even think it's the hormones. Jesus. I wonder what she's going to do because, that this is very early in the conversation by the time I took these screenshots. But yeah, this is a lot. And she's very early in it. She's still young. She's either the 26-year-old or the 28-year-old. But when you're having all of these second thoughts, obviously, I do not think that that's a good time to bring someone into this world. But thinking about all that is going on in the world right now and the fact that, yes, she's probably going to be the default parent because that is life right now. Anyways, let's look at the few comments that were on the post. Ayanko says at the bottom, well, sounds like you have your answer. Don't have to stay pregnant. No need to feel bad about it. Mr. Astastic says, you need to have a serious conversation with your husband. This isn't a wait and it'll blow over situation. There's nothing wrong with wanting to back out, but the longer you wait, the more pain it'll cause. The fewer options you'll have for treatment. You haven't even factored in the external family pressure. Friend, this isn't on for Reddit. At the bottom, this person says, at the end of the day, it's your body that has to create this new person, not his. So you have the final say. You're right that everything will be different and that it will be hard. Having a partner that won't or can't be an equal partner in raising a baby makes it so much worse. There's nothing wrong with saying, not now, we're not ready. If anything, that's just being responsible. Do what you need to do. PDX Grassfed said, I totally understand. I got pregnant in 3 weeks after getting off birth control, and we weren't really trying at all. I was so shocked. You're feeling so many feelings right now. Just let it settle for a moment. It's okay if you decide you don't want this right now. It's also okay if you decide you do. I can say from the deepest depths of my heart that I'm so glad I had my daughter and she is the best thing to happen in my life. I was a fence sitter my whole life. And being pregnant is a wild experience, but I fall deeper in love with her every day, and I'm so grateful for her. No matter what you do, it'll be the right decision. Careless Seesaw says, sometimes you have to see the positive test to know what you don't want. That's totally okay. You do have to talk to your husband, but it sounds like he hasn't had the realizations you have, and he will probably be caught off guard. Born Again says, hello, I'm sorry you're struggling with this, as I know that just pregnancy by itself is quite a physical ordeal, but it's good you're reaching out instead of trying to handle it all on your own. It's totally normal to have doubts and anxiety regarding the prospect of having a child for the first time, so you aren't alone. First question I have is about the first part of your post. We recently wanted to try having kids. Could you unpack that a little? Specifically, was that an idea both of you had and your husband, both you and your husband agreed on? And then finally, Correct Advisor says, if you think getting off social media would be better for your mental health, I highly recommend you do so. I think all of your fears are valid. No one can say that those things will happen, but it's also not guaranteed that they will happen. If your husband is not talking to you for the whole day because of a breakout, you guys have some serious work to do before having a baby. With all that said, I firmly believe no one should have to be pregnant if they don't want to be. It doesn't matter the reason. If you don't want to be pregnant, that's absolutely your choice. It's very interesting to see how some of the ladies are thinking and feeling and speaking on this topic. So, like I will continue to say, I'm going to keep sharing these stories. I'm going to keep sharing the stories because this is where women are. You can see and feel the shift happening. So join the conversation, share these stories, share your own stories, like, comment, and share, and go ahead and follow if you're not following me.